Welcome back to Coffee with Cagnetta, and I have the Rita Case with me. We are super honored here to have Rita with us today. She is an incredible entrepreneur. She comes from an incredible entrepreneur family, and she's a pilot. She is a philanthropist. She is just someone with a lot of information, wealth of information that we would love to present to everybody today. So, Rita, thank you for coming in today.
Oh, thank you for having me. You know, I always like to talk.
I know.
I sell cars. We always want to talk.
I know, and you're really good at it. You were just telling me that you're doing television commercials today, and I was just asking you about that. I mean, you're all over the place.
It's fun.
It's fun.
I'm having fun. I've always had fun.
Yeah. So, well, let's talk about always having fun because, you know, I was reading a little bit of your backstory, and you came from a family that was in the auto repair business.
Right. So my father had a repair shop, just him and my mom. My dad was the repair mechanic, and my mom answered the phone. And he repaired Aston Martins. This is in the early 50s.
Right.
And old Porsches, MGs. So it was called Foreign Automotive. And he ran that. And in 1959, when Honda decided to bring the small little scooter to the United States, they called it the Nifty Thrifty Honda 50 because it was a 50cc and it had the little white fairing in the front.
Yeah.
And their logo was Meet the Nicest People on a Honda. They were going to different towns looking for someone that might sign up. And we were in Santa Rosa, California, Northern California. And my dad says, well, maybe I can put those out in front of my foreign car garage and people will just see them and come in and, you know, buy them. Of course, They were very inexpensive, like $200. So he did that, and that was in 1959. So he was the first dealer, one of the first dealers in California when they opened in 1959. In 1968, they decided to bring a car in. So that's how we ended up in the car business. The motorcycles started to really grow as the baby boomers started to get licenses and bought motorcycles. So Honda continued to grow with its motorcycle products, and that ended up being the main business that my father had. He was a motorcycle dealer, a Honda motorcycle dealer throughout the 60s. In 68, when they decided to consider bringing a car to the United States, they went to their motorcycle dealers, which was their only distribution, and they asked their motorcycle dealers in California only if they would like to sign on to sell a car along with the motorcycles. So my dad says, well, why not? You know, I've done really well with these motorcycles, and I'm a car guy anyway.
Right.
So my dad was the first Honda signed up in the United States. So he has dealer number 1.
Wow.
So that was in, again, Santa Rosa. It was called Manley Honda of Santa Rosa. And in 1970 is when the car came. That's when I was getting my driver's license. So in 1970, when the car actually arrived, my parents' dealership, along with the few other dealers, motorcycle dealers in California, received this car and attempted to sell it. But it was only a 600cc air-cooled engine, and they were selling Honda motorcycles that were 4-cylinder 750 cc's. So actually the engine in the car was smaller than the engine in the motorcycles. So they were only $1,295. They were smaller than the Volkswagen Beetle that was being sold at the time. And we couldn't sell it to anyone because, you know, in 1970, everybody was still driving very big cars.
Wow.
So my dad said, hey, listen, Rita, you got to drive this to high school and try to sell it because maybe the kids, your friends at school. So I did that, and that's when I started selling cars. So I was really the first Honda car salesperson in the United States. And I'd always worked in the business. It was a small family business, the motorcycles. My every day after school, we went there. That's the way it worked. My parents, we went to, and we did anything, swept floors, put together motorcycles, put away parts, and I loved the business. So I was the only one in my family that stayed in it. My older sister went on to nursing and became an anesthesiologist. My older brother got into construction. They didn't want to work for their parents. Okay, that's not unusual. But it was just so much fun. I didn't see anything about it that was, not fun. Right. So I stayed in it and went on to college, got out of college, came back and ran the dealership for my parents. And they retired. And that was in 1976. And in 1977, I started a group of Honda dealers around the country through the National Auto Dealers Association. It's called a Honda 20 group. And they had Buick 20 groups, they had Chevy 20 groups, Ford 20 groups. And the concept was you got 20 dealers around the country that were not in the same market. You had to be at least 250 miles away.
Right.
And I got those dealers together saying, let's start our own group.
Right.
Because Honda hadn't been recognized really as a franchise and as a, viable franchise. So that's where I met Rick, because Rick was a Honda car and motorcycle dealer in Cleveland, and he signed up to be on this group to learn more about the car business. I signed up. Of course, I was starting it.
Right.
And we met there, and that was in 1977, and that's how I ended up meeting Rick. And then we got married in 1980. I left Honda of Santa Rosa, and my parents came out of retirement. They were only 50. They were only retired because I told them, Dad, if you don't leave, no one's ever going to listen to me here.
Right.
I'll just be the dealer's daughter forever. So, which a woman in the car business already was just unheard of. Nobody was listening to me anyway because I was not a man. So he left, and I ran the business, and I grew the business. And then when I left, my parents came back out of retirement. Wow. And they continued to run the business. The dealership is still open today. My mom's 92. She still goes to the dealership every day.
Wow.
Yep, she drives her little Honda CR-V. My younger brother decided to get into the business out of high school. And so he has been running the store from my father passed away a few years ago. And so that's how I met Rick. And then I went to Ohio, of course, and started working with him in his business where he had the Honda car and motorcycle dealership. And we grew that to what it is today, the Rick Case Automotive Group, which is significantly large in its volume, not necessarily in the number of dealerships.
Right. So you came down to Florida. Why?
We came to Florida because in Ohio we had the 2 Honda car stores, and we were the first ones to open it. We've built our business starting franchises that have never been sold in America before. When you do that, it's free. So if you go buy a dealership from another person, you have to pay for it.
Right.
So how Rick and I grew the business was signing up for every franchise that hasn't been sold in the United States.
Wow.
So in 1981, we became the first Isuzu dealer. We opened two dealerships in Cleveland, one in a Radio Shack and one in an old 7-Eleven, just to give you an idea of how things have changed in requirements for opening a dealership, okay? So we opened the first 2 Isuzu dealerships in the United States, and then we were looking for franchises. So in 1985, Acura was being introduced, and they offered it to Honda dealers first because it's a division of Honda.
Yep.
So we said, we want that. And then at the same time in 1985, Hyundai was considering to come to the United States from Korea and sell in the United States. Same year. So we signed up for that. And we thought, where would be the best place to try to introduce the first luxury Japanese model, because Lexus and Infiniti weren't brought till years later. And where would we put a Korean car? Because you remember, there was nothing sold in the United States that was from Korea.
Right.
People thought of Korea as the Korean War. That was about it.
Right.
Where the Japanese had cameras, they had products, they had electronics that we all knew were good products. But with Korea, people were taking a risk to buy something that was a Korean made and to be your second largest purchase behind your house and put it into a Korean manufactured product. Right. So we thought, we'll come to South Florida, because it's a melting pot down here.
Yeah, sure.
We thought we'd have a better chance of selling the first luxury Japanese car and also to introduce the first Korean car in America. That's how we got to Fort Lauderdale. And we sold all of our motorcycle stores. We had 14 from Cincinnati. We grew that from 1980. Rick and I were together, growing.
Right.
And we grew that to having dealerships all the way from Cincinnati all the way up through Northeast Ohio.
Wow.
So that's how we sold all of them to one person to raise the capital to buy the property over there on 441 and Sunrise in Fort Lauderdale and to build the Acura and the Hyundai dealership.
Yeah. And how'd you get to Atlanta?
We got to Atlanta because when they heard our speech about being a Hyundai dealer, they didn't want to pick anyone in a market that wasn't already established. So they wanted to pick a dealer that was already in the market. We weren't in South Florida.
Right.
Nobody had ever heard of Rick Case in South Florida. We were a Cleveland dealer. But we sold them so well out in California, the Koreans, that we were going to be this most amazing dealer ever, that they said, well, you know what? We think you're so amazing. We're going to give you an Atlanta franchise as well.
Wow.
So we got Atlanta the same day. And we opened both of them on the exact same day, brand new facilities from the ground up on February 18th, 1986, which was opening day for Hyundai in the United States.
Wow.
That's how we got to Atlanta. And the same story in Atlanta. We opened those dealerships all as open points. We got the Acura point, the Kia point, the Audi point.
Right. Volvo. I mean, you have a lot of Maserati. I mean,
yeah, we don't have Volvo, but we
sorry,
do.
sorry.
Yeah, we
thought I
do.
saw that.
Yeah, we do have Maserati, Alfa Romeo, and Fiat right here in South Florida, and we have Mazda, Kia, a couple of Hyundai stores, and Audi in Atlanta.
And a golf cart, right? Did I see the golf cart?
Easy go. That's because we have, we stayed in the motorcycle business down here. So we have a Honda Powerhouse, which sells everything that Honda makes, like the generators, the lawnmowers, all the motorcycle lines, off-road motorcycles. And we added to it Easy Go because about, 6 years ago, people started, using the golf carts on the street and around their communities. And we thought, that's just another transportation. We might as well grab that franchise.
Well, you seem to have always had fun in the business. I mean, and you've been very involved in South Florida as well. So talk about like how you got into the community and you've been such, influencers and giving back and getting involved. Just
well, the story about that is that back in Ohio, we were building our own bicycles in France. So if you remember the Motobacan, a bicycle, it was like one of the very first high-end 10-speeds. So we'd always been selling bicycles in our motorcycle stores because we were the only dealer in the country that had Yamaha, Kawasaki, Honda, and Suzuki in the same showroom. Wow. Most motorcycle dealers back in the 70s and in the 80s were mom-pop shops, as they say. Right. They just had one franchise and the family operated it. Well, we were mass marketers. Rick was always about volume. So we had bicycles, mopeds, motorcycles in these dealerships that we had in Ohio. So when we got the idea back in like I say, Rick and I were married in 1980. And in 1981, my influence into his organization was more, just that I saw that maybe he didn't. These kids really wanting bicycles. I would see these kids coming in and just looking at these bicycles, wishing they could have a bike that they could not afford or their family could not afford. So I said to Rick, why don't we ask all the neighborhoods around our dealerships to bring in their bicycles that they no longer need, that are sitting in their garage, that their kids have outgrown or they're not using. We'll fix them up in our bicycle repair shops and we'll get them out to kids for free in time for the holidays. So we started the Rick Case Bikes for Kids campaign in 1981. And when we were looking for what do we do with these bicycles, that's when we met the Boys and Girls Clubs. So Cleveland and Akron, matter of fact, LeBron James shot his first basket at the Akron Boys and Girls Club. So we partnered with the Cleveland and the Akron Boys and Girls Clubs so we would fix the bicycles up and we would take them there. They would find the homes. Right. And over the last 43 years, we have expanded just the fact that people knew about this. Matter of fact, people are now bringing in bicycles. It starts October 1st and it ends 2 days before Christmas. Because we can't take the bicycles all year long. Yeah, sure. But we've continued it, and even though we don't have the bicycle stores, we still have the Rick Case Bikes for Kids, and we have Broward County school systems, Atlanta, all the different churches, synagogues, all of them ask for so many bicycles each year. Right. So they're being distributed throughout the people that need bicycles, as well as the Boys and Girls Clubs. So that's how we got started, and that's when we met the Boys and Girls Clubs in Cleveland, understood their mission. We carried that down here, and we got very involved with growing the Boys and Girls Clubs down here because it centers on education, and that's what Rick and I were very passionate about, besides the hospital systems as well.
Yeah. I mean, you've done a lot of things. You've been a leader and you and Rick, I mean, you have many things named after you in town. Talk about, continuing on, Rick, unfortunately, passed away, and he was a force, and you both were a force to be reckoned with. You have your kids involved now.
Yeah. Well, our son is 43 and our daughter's 41. And Rick and I we're just going full speed.
Right.
We always were going full speed. And so they weren't really involved in the business when they were younger, like I was.
Right.
First of all, we were too big.
Right.
We had too many dealerships.
Right.
And I didn't have my associates having their kids there, so I wasn't going to have my kids there. So they both went to college, Northwood University, which is up
Michigan.
Sons and Dollar. There, they went to the campus in West Palm Beach off of Okeechobee. That's now Kaiser.
Yep.
But it's kind of like they have an entrepreneurial program for the auto industry. So they learned, and then they started coming in working after college with dealerships, not for us, but in dealerships. That's years ago. So now, 20 years later, they both have leadership positions in the company, and they're learning the business. But Rick and I pretty much ran the business at a very fast pace. So I was always operations. Rick was always marketing, and certainly the face of the company, and certainly came up with all the ideas that help us grow our volume.
Right.
And I always worked as the COO, as the as the operations director. So when he passed away during COVID, it was easy for me to take on the marketing because there was a chip shortage. We didn't really have to market much, and so now we're full speed again.
Wow. And as a woman leader, you seem to also give back to a lot of young women, guiding them to, I've seen you give some incredible speeches.
Thank you.
Junior Achievement, the Boys and Girls Club, of course.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how you mentor other, young women or young kids to get into business.
Well, I love it when I'm speaking to the women's group, and there's so many, both from the colleges. I also do speeches for the American Heritage, for example, and some of the youth schools, some of the high schools for their entrepreneurial program. And I just love to do that because it doesn't just have to be women. All my message is always the same.
Sure.
But for women in general, I reiterate to them that even though it's male-dominated, just look past that. Don't let that clutter up your passion or reduce your confidence to speak up. I always letting women know that their opportunities are so much better than mine was. In 1976, when I just took over the dealership from my father, it was just, I was the only woman in the room when I would go to business meetings or conventions. And still today, it's very rare that there's a woman dealer. It's usually a woman that's either the daughter of the owner or the wife. It's rarely do women go buy dealerships or start dealerships on their own.
Right.
But my message has always been, and what I've done is in our organization is lead by example. Show them I can do it, you can do it. And this is how I did it. And I did it by not bragging, but being the smartest one in the room.
Right.
That is how I did it. I became an expert on everything automotive. So when I was in a room with all these guys and there was a topic, I never was the first one to speak. I always waited for all of the other guys to speak. And I waited and just waited till my time.
Right.
And then when nobody had the best answer, I would say, I think I have something to add. And then the room is quiet, like, oh, what is she even here for? And I would say something and they'd be just like, oh, I can't believe she knew that, she thought of that it was her solution to the problem.
Right.
And I did that only by educating myself, by dedicating myself. And over the years, many years now, I've been respected as being someone that is adding and contributing to our industry. But that's what it takes. You definitely are dismissed being in a male-dominated industry, but you can quickly become a force and a respected partner with them if you get educated.
Yeah. You hear that, my daughters? Anyway, so
Yeah.
you have a lot of skills, and one of the unique skills you have is you're a pilot.
Yes.
Talk about that. Your mother was a pilot.
My mom and my dad were hobbyist pilots.
Wow.
My dad, of course, and my mom were the car dealers, but they both had a 182, and we would use that as a little family transportation. But my dad was really into World War II planes, which isn't probably unusual. He was born in 1928,
Right.
and he had four brothers. He had three brothers and himself, and because he was the youngest, he wasn't called to war. But his brothers were all. Fortunately, they all came out with medals and alive. But he was really a hobbyist World War II enthusiast for planes. So we always had these, antique planes. And at 16, you can get your license, and that's still today. So when I was in high school and I was younger, like 13, 14, my mom and dad let me use the little Cessna out at the local airport, Sonoma County Airport, and I would take lessons. And so when on my 16th birthday, I soloed, and I just kept the hobby because I loved it.
So
It's just so much fun. And so I had a 182 here in Florida. Same, because it's all I needed. I wasn't taking people anywhere. Right. I was just doing it as a hobby. And so then when the Honda Jet, because we were the largest largest Honda dealer,
right.
With that dealership out there,
sure.
And Honda came out with a jet, I thought, oh my goodness, I want to be the first woman to fly a Honda Jet. So going from a Cessna 182, which is this little bitty single engine plane, to a jet, I thought, I got to get started. I want to be the first woman to fly a Honda Jet. So just because I met Rick as a Honda dealer, my father was the first Honda dealer, Rick and I were the first Acura dealers to open in the country, it's like, I got to do this. And so I put the first order in, like the first order. It was a $25,000 deposit in 2006. So I was the order number one. I always like to be number one, by the way.
Yes, of course.
You're going to get that in my story.
Yeah, I've got
that. and so that was in 2006, and it took them many years to build the plane because it was such a unique plane. It had the engines mounted on the wings. No other jet had ever done that. It had all these unique features that took a while for FAA to approve. So I had to then go from the little single engine. I had to get an instrument rating, a twin rating. Then I had to get a commercial pilot's license because you have to be a commercial pilot like American Airlines in order to fly at those altitudes. And I did all that as the plane was being built. And I took delivery in 2016. And so it took 10 years. And I was the first woman civilian pilot, opposed to the FAA people, to get my rating in the Honda Jet. And I got the first delivery. And so I've been flying the Honda Jet from 2016. And I got over 1,000 hours on it, and then I wanted something bigger,
right?
Because it was 4 seats. It's like the smallest light jet you can buy of that model, and so so now for the last 3 years I've been flying the Phenom 300E, which has got 8 seats in the back.
Wow!
So I've been flying that, but I do have the first Honda Echelon on order, which the Echelon Honda is a same size as the Phenom. It has 8 seats in the back. So that won't be till about 2028, 2029. They're not quite sure.
That's incredible.
It's super fun. It's my favorite hobby.
Is it?
Yes.
Well, tell me about some of your other things that you love doing in the community. I mean, you're super busy, obviously, as an entrepreneur, but what else do you like to do?
Well, I just noticed as I was walking in your beautiful office and saw all those pictures, I'm into hospitals. I'm on the board of the Cleveland Clinic.
Yes.
I'm on the board of Nova Southeastern University, which has a huge medical school. We graduate more DOs and MDs than any other university in the United States.
Wow.
500. And I'm involved in Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital, which I saw all your great accolades there along your wall.
Yes.
And Caitlin Stellar over there. I'm chairing this year the ball for the Joe DiMaggio, their annual ball. And
Used to be called Angels, and
it used to be called the Diamond Angels, but I changed the name.
Oh, good.
And I've
Of course
moved
you
it.
did.
I've moved it. I've restructured it. We've got Counting Crows as our entertainment, and I'm sure that we'll be talking to you at the end of this wonderful podcast about being a part of our event. And we're moving it to Pier 66, and of course, Pier 66 is just looking amazing.
Absolutely gorgeous. Have you been for dinner?
I have, and I've also had 3 events there. The Boys and Girls
Really?
Clubs have had 2, and I've had an event there. So I'm very happy with the food. Rick and I were going there when we got down here in the 1980. We'd go there for dinner.
Did you have anything upstairs yet?
I haven't been upstairs. Is it open yet?
No, I don't think it's right.
No, I don't think it, but it's going to be. They're going to continue, and they're going to have it rotating. Yep, the 60-minute rotation around, so you can see. And Rick and I went up there. I've been there to so many events over the last 45 years we've been down here. So yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about the gala for Joe.
Oh, I would love to.
Please.
So it's going to be, like I said, at Pier 66. It's on November the 15th, and it's going to be with Counting Crows is going to be, and we only have one more table to sell.
Really?
Yes, I've got 50. It's going to be.
Sounds like I'm buying it.
It's going to be. First, we're going to have 500 people at the event. And
it is a spectacular event. I've been a few times.
It's
so.
going to be completely different.
Well,
yes,
last time
I'm completely different than it has been before.
I did see Joan Jett and Jack Blades because Night Ranger opened up. Not Night Ranger, Sister Christian. Yeah, Night Ranger. So it was spectacular. And Joe D has a special place in my heart. Both my kids were born there. I moved down. It was the first thing I did. I went to the Joe DiMaggio 80th birthday party. That was my first event.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So many years ago. But
yeah. No, it's a great organization. All of the hospital systems. I'm very involved as a philanthropist with Holy Cross.
Right.
And they have a great new CEO I just met the other night.
Oh, really?
Shane Strom, who now took over Broward Health and Memorial North and South that's under him, as well as Joe D. And they're kind of restructuring that. Again, I was on the board of Cleveland Clinic. I've done a lot down at Baptist, combining FIU and Baptist. I'm building a research lab there for orthopedic microsurgery, for orthopedic.
Yeah, sure.
So it's a collaboration between Baptist and FIU since they're so close. So the lab's at FIU with the students, but the teachers are coming from from Baptist, their orthopedic research department. So health, I want to keep this community very, very healthy. I want to keep them educated, which is why the Boys and Girls Clubs is at my heart. We're 16 clubs now, serving 12,000 kids, and they're all in neighborhoods and in zip codes that truly need after care support for education so that they get to the next grade on time. That's my mission, the next grade on time. So I'm all about education, scholarships, not just university scholarships, but I have a really big vocational scholarship. When Rick passed away, before he passed away, I knew he was passing away, though he didn't want anyone else to know.
Right.
I said, "What do we want to do? When you die, what do you want? What do you want?" And he said, "I want to start a vocational scholarship program for the Boys and Girls Clubs because we already had a big one at SU. I already had a big scholarship to put the kids through 4 years at the university." But not many kids can get, first of all, admitted because you have to have very good grades. And it's not the right path for a lot of kids.
It isn't.
So we've started 5 years ago. Rick passed away 5 years ago. We started a vocational scholarship program. So if anyone's interested in donating, even $10 makes a difference to the Boys and Girls Club Rick Case Vocational Scholarship Program. That would be awesome.
There you go. We'll put the link in the
I'll give you the link.
Notes.
Thank you.
We will put the link in the show notes. And, first of all, thank you for everything you do for the community, Rita. You are a brand in yourself. Amazing hats. You always have a great hat, and you're always, so well presenting your business and the community. You've been a great contributor at the Broward Workshop over the years and a leader, and you love this community. So I'm going to ask you some fun questions, real quick. What are some of your favorite things to do in the community? What's your favorite restaurants or some of the things you like to go?
Oh, my goodness. What a great question. I really like Sete Mezzo, which is a family owned and operated. The owner is the chef, and the wife is the receptionist. Her name is Rita also, and it's over on 441 north off the Sawgrass. So if you go down the Sawgrass and you go north on 441,
Right.
it's the first entrance. There's a Walgreens there, and Sete Mezzo is right in there. Nobody knows about it, but if you want Sunday supper, he gives you that pot, where you go every Sunday and you get the Sunday supper. You take it home for the week. He's great. He's great.
Wow.
Franco. It's one of my favorite places because everything is homemade there. The desserts, the bread, the pasta, all the fish is wild caught. And it's not expensive. It's extremely reasonable. So I highly recommend that if you've not heard about that.
I have not.
Yeah.
I have to go there.
And
one
then
day.
another one is And Pasta.
Oh, yeah.
A-N-D, and Pasta. Of course, you need to make a reservation there for like next year
Right.
because it's so small. So that's another
Yes.
one. Casa D'Angelo's another one of my favorites. Angelo is so philanthropic. Him and his
He
wife,
is.
Denise,
Denise
they
do a
give
great job.
to almost, you ask them to do a meal, they are always helping.
Yes.
They let their
Pace,
restaurant.
they do a great soup.
Exactly. They take over the restaurant for Pace Center for girls. So those are some of my favorites.
That's great. And obviously you're flying around. You like
Yeah.
to do that. And
I pretty much only fly to places where I'm working,
Yeah.
but that's almost every week.
Yeah.
Either the Atlanta stores or I'm going to conventions. I'm going to Detroit for automotive conventions. So I'm out Las Vegas, a lot of conventions there.
it's an incredible life that you are leading and helping others. I mean, how many associates do you have these days?
We have 1,400.
Wow.
Yeah, most of them are here in Broward County. So we have about 950 in Broward County, and the rest are up in Atlanta.
And I know you're involved in the health, helping them be healthy as well.
Oh, absolutely. We have a great wellness program as well as a very good health insurance with dental, with eye care, with long-term, short-term disability, all the things that would help a family.
So we'll leave everybody with this. If there are young people listening, what's some advice that you would give them, looking into the future?
Well, the first advice I'd give you is that if you want our book, which we wrote, Our Customers, Our Friends, I actually should have brought one in from my car, but I will give you one before I leave.
Okay.
You can show it on the site. Just email me at ritacase@rickcase.com. That's a pretty easy email.
Yeah,
No dots, no dashes, just ritacase@rickcase.com. If you email me your address, your name too, please,
Yeah.
and your address, I will send you one for free. That book and the chapters in that book will absolutely guide you to your future. Some of the chapters are Persistence Removes Resistance, which is what we use to build our company.
Right.
Never Take No for an Answer. It's another chapter and how we use that to grow our business. Start early, plan your day, and work your plan. If you stay on the plan, you will reach the goal. If you start early and plan it ahead of time, you'll not waste time. People always say, how do you do all what you do every day? It's like unbelievable how much you get done in a day. And I say it's very simple. I plan my day the night before. I know everything chronologically, by time, exactly what I'm doing from the time that my first meeting or my first appointment or my first commitment all the way down to my last. So I know when my feet hit the floor, first of all, I have a trainer every morning at 5:30. So I'm up at bed at 5 o'clock. I'm up early. Go to do the trainer for an hour and a half, and then I'm to the shower and I'm to my list. But I know exactly what I'm going to wear. Like I have in the car 2 outfits because I have 2 other things I have to go to. So I take it all with me. That's how I get so much done.
Right.
I plan it. But this book is a really fun book about Rick's and my history. We wrote it on the 50th anniversary of the dealership, which was 63 years ago. We wrote it in 2012. And I'm telling you that book will really help you plan your own future so that you can be passionate and be successful.
I'm looking forward to reading that book. Rita, thank you so much for joining me today and joining us. I mean, we're honored to have you. Horatio Alger Award winner, Rita Case amazing entrepreneur, amazing entrepreneurial family. Thank you for everything that you have done, for Rick has done in our community. Thank you for coming in today.
Well, thanks for having me, Andy. I see you all the time at all the different board meetings. You know, you're one of the leaders in town as well.
Yes.
You're a community leader. Everyone looks up to you and looks for your advice. So this is so exciting that you actually have this show and allow local people, as well as I'm sure you're going around the country searching for people that will have something to say that others would want to learn from. That's great.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, today for joining us with a very special Coffee with Cagnetta. We'll catch you next time. Thanks.